sabbatical. So he'll be back actually not next Shabbat, but starting the following week.
Okay.
So second. Yeah, absolutely.
How was the retreat? I saw some pictures on Facebook.
It was good. Productive. No, they did it at oh gosh, it's Unity, yeah, off of Monona. Unity, I think it's called, where they had rehearsals during COVID when Capitol Lakes was not able to provide their space. Yeah, it's a very nice space and they're very accommodating. So
It's always so productive to get people weekends together to rehearse and spend time.
And I think that they're thinking about ways that they can increase the informal kind of bonding time component of it, because that, it's not that it's missing, I think that it could just stand to be strengthened. So, so I have a couple of people that I need to attend to who are here, but it's wonderful to see you. Hey guys, how's it going? Are your parents here? Let me go back and find them.
It's actually on its own battery. We're gonna keep turning around. So I think Rabbi Bonnie is gonna be so our senior rabbi is Jonathan Biden. His wife is a rabbi and she's gonna be leading services tonight. So I am encouraging you to turn phones to silent. I gotta do my watch. I mean, yeah, it's like on the plane it says, turn your watches. Earphone. But the loop says, you can hear. Yeah, and I can actually hear. I know. I can hear birds flapping. I can hear people wrestling. Or not. Maybe you're fine. If you could talk to me and not the computer.
Anna says hello.
Oh, well,
What? What did it say?
I know who it is, and I know that's my best. You see through the sky?
Shabbat Shalom. So welcome. I'm sure that you're confused and saying that's not Rabbi Beich. Not Rabbi Beich, but an incredible invitation. For those of you who don't know, I'm Rabbi Bonnie Margulis, and Rabbi Beich is on sabbatical. And so I'm filling in for him tonight. And if you're wondering why are you filling in particularly, because in addition to being the executive director of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, I also teach religious school here. And it's my privilege and my honor to teach our 8th graders. And we have 2 of our 8th graders here tonight. And they are going to be taking some parts of the service, helping to lead our services tonight. Our 8th graders, every 8th grade, studies and learns and is trained to be madrichim, to be teachers' aides in our religious school. So starting next year when they're in 9th grade, they will be employees and on the faculty of our religious school. So we wanted to honor tonight these young leaders who are coming up in our congregation. And so I'm very privileged to be their teacher and to welcome them to join us at various points on the bima with us tonight. And very privileged to be partnering tonight with our cantor Naomi.
Welcome everyone in Shabbat Shalom. Those of you who are here in this space, looks like everyone's been able to get a Siddur, a prayer book. Wonderful. We also have a Shabbat program that you may want to refer to at some various points that has announcements and other kinds of things. And later on, we'll also be reading a little bit from the Torah. And at that time, we'll direct anybody who wants to get a copy of the text that we're reading from this evening will be able to do so. There's larger books that are on the book rack out there, but no need to get those right now if you're not ready yet. For those who are joining us online, there's also a link to our Shabbat program and to a website where you can access the Torah reading as well, where you see where it says Sefaria, and we'll refer to that when we get to that Torah reading. For now, though, it's so good to be here together in this space. And so we'll sing to warm up our voices and our spirits. Joining together on page 128 with Hine Matov, how good it is and how pleasant it is to be here together. Hine Matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov Manayim shevet achim gam yachad. One more time. Hinei matov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Repeating after me. How good it is. How sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Hinei matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov Manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
I'd like to welcome Kazberger and his family up to the bima for the lighting of our Shabbat candles. Kaz's bar mitzvah is coming up soon, and we're excited to welcome them tonight. We're on page 120 and 121.
Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the secret fastness of the heart. Blessed are the hearts with strength to stop their beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue at the bottom of page 132 with Or Zarua.
As we begin to welcome Shabbat. Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha. Uyishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha. Uyishrei Lev Simcha. Yai lai lai lai
Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha Uyishrei Lev Simcha Or Zarua Latzadik Uyishrei Lev Simcha Uyishrei Lev Simcha Yai lai 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 Yai lai lai Yai lai 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 Yai lai lai.
We continue on 138 with Lecha Dodi, welcoming the Shabbat bride. The rabbis of old envisioned Shabbat as a beautiful bride coming every week to greet us. And so, as is our custom, at the end of the song, we will rise and turn toward the door as we greet the Shabbat bride as she comes in. We'll be singing paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lecha lecha dodi lika likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha lecha dodi lika likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela La 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 Lecha dodi lika likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha lecha dodi lika likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Ishmi'anu el hameyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem u'tiferet v'liti la 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 Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha lecha dodi likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor ha'beracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila La 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 Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha lecha dodi likat kala Pnei pnei Shabbat nikavela Hitoreri, Iva orech kumi ori Uri shir taberi For Adonai alayich nigla la 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 Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha lecha dodi likat kala Pnei Shabbat nikavela. We rise and face the way that we entered. Oi v'shalom hateret ba'ala Gam b'simcha uv'tzola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala La 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 Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei Shabbat nikavela La 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 Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei Shabbat nikavela Lecha dodi likat kala Pnei Shabbat nikavela.
Page 140.
A psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat Tov lehodot laAdonai Ulezamer leshimcha elyon Ulezamer leshimcha elyon Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat Tov lehodot laAdonai ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, עלי עצור ועלי נבר, עלי היגיון וכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
We continue with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, on page 146. Please rise.
Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
On the top of page 149.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sails of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Page 150, Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokbeinu uvkumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Hem chayenu ve'or לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Page 152 and 153, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto
Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
Continuing on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot, Bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish'arecha lema'an tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet.
Let's read together on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you're tired or whether you're rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. The top of 157, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 158, Mi Chamocha.
Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 ya lai 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 כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים. זה אלינו ויאמרו, זה אלינו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
On page 160, grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace forevermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Baruch atah Adonai, ha-porei sukkot shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to a parched field, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Please turn to page 164 and rise for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasarim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah.
Page 168.
Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai,
Mechaye hakol ata Rav lehoshia. Mori hatal. Mechalkel chaim bechesed. Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim virofei cholim. Umatir asurim. Umechayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha bal givurot umido melach melech memit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua.
V'ne'eman ata l'chachayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai mechaye hakol.
Amen. Continuing on page 170. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah, Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Bottom of page 172. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai, our God, grant us our heritage, your holy Shabbat, that Israel who sanctifies your name may rest on it. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Please be seated.
We continue on page 178 with Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
The rabbis in the Talmud had this debate. Should the prayers be written down? Should they be keva? Should they be fixed? Or should we lean into kavanah, into intention? And some of the rabbis said they should be keva. They should be written down. They should be fixed. Otherwise, there'll be chaos. People will do their own thing. Everybody will be praying differently. And nobody will know what they're supposed to do. And we need them to be fixed and written, because that way we'll know everybody's saying the right words in the right order at the right time, and that way we'll know that our prayers are acceptable. And the other rabbi said, but if we do that, then every single service, and remember, they prayed 3 times a day, every day, it'll become rote, and people will stop paying attention to what they're saying, and they'll just sort of mumble through the prayers, and they won't be thinking about the meaning of what they're saying, and they will lose their kavanah. They will lose their intention. So they shouldn't be written down, and everybody should be able to pray the prayers of their own hearts. And in typical rabbinic fashion, whenever they were confronted with a choice between A and B, they always chose, let's do A and B. So that's why we have a fixed prayer book with our prayers written out and in the right order with the right words, but also a time for our own silent prayers. And we have come to that moment in our service where you can offer up your own silent prayers, your own thoughts and meditations of your own heart and mind and being, that which is most meaningful for you. So we'll take a moment for silent prayer, and then we'll come together for Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh Shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh Shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom b'romav, yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'romav, yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'romav, yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu.
We continue with the service for the reading of Torah on page 363. And I'd like to invite Gabe Prager and Isaac Dixon-Lazimi to return to the bima for our Torah service. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. Please rise.
Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai ve'ein kemasecha. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Adonai os ve'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Page 366. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Adonai iti unerom b'ma shemo yachdav. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho.
Please be seated.
If anybody would like to, do you want me to give if you want to grab any books to follow along with the Torah reading? If you would like to follow along with the Torah reading today, we have copies of our Plow Torah commentary that are on the bottom shelf of the same rack where you grab the prayer books on your way in. The reading will be found on page 894 of that book. It's the books toward the bottom. They're red and blue. They say the Torah on the cover. And when you get there, they'll be again on page 894. For those who are joining us online, if you'd like to follow along with the Torah reading, there's a link in the video description that says Sepharia, where you'll be able to find the reading for this evening.
So we are reading my favorite portion. It's called Kedoshim, which means holiness. In Western literature, the climax of a story always comes at the end, right? The whodunit, you don't find out till the very end. The romance doesn't, the couple doesn't come together until the very end, right? That's when all the denouement happens. But in ancient Near Eastern literature, it's not that way. The climax of the story actually happens in the middle. And if you can kind of see where the scroll is rolled, it's pretty much in the middle. So this portion, Leviticus 19, the Holiness Code, is the climax of our story. It's the high point. It's arguably the most important thing. You would think it might be the 10 Commandments or coming into Sinai or coming into Canaan. But it's right here in the middle. It's the Holiness Code. And why do we call it the Holiness Code? It starts out with, Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. Be holy, for I, Adonai, your God, am holy. You know, the rabbis had this sort of quandary, like, how do we understand these texts? How do we understand Genesis? Genesis 1, it says, let us make people in our image. And the rabbi said, how can we be made in God's image? God doesn't have an image. So what does that mean? Well, the Holiness Code tells us what that means. The Holiness Code says, I, God, am holy. You're made in my image, so you also have to be holy. But what does it mean to be holy? So the whole rest of the chapter tells you this is what it means to be holy. And it gives us this sort of taxonomy of holiness. It gives a listing. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list, but it's meant to be, here are some examples of different ways there are of being holy. And you might think that it would be a laundry list of ritual and sacrifice and prayer and things the priests do and things that you do at the temple or things that you do between you and God. And there are actually just a couple of verses that deal with that, which actually we're going to skip over. But the vast majority are all about how we interact with each other. Holiness is about how we interact with each other. And it's amazing when we read this text that is 2,500 to 3,000 years old, how much it speaks to today. So what are some of the things it tells us that are encompassed in being holy? Well, one thing is to honor our parents. I love that that's the very first thing. My kids, are you watching? No. And then honor the Sabbath. And then there's a couple of things about sacrifice, which we're skipping over. And then the next thing is leave the corners of your fields and your vineyards so that the poor and the hungry and the stranger in your midst can come and glean. So anybody who needs food is entitled to come and get food. And you can't shoo them away, and they don't have to be embarrassed by going door to door and knocking on people's doors or sitting on the street corner and asking for food. They are entitled to just go into the fields at harvest time and gather what they need. Then there's, we have to have just law courts. You can't overly favor the rich. You also shouldn't overly favor the poor just because they're poor. So nobody is above the law, no matter how rich they are or what position they have in society. And even if they are poor, yes, we want to have mercy and compassion, but we still need to have fair and just law courts. And we have rules about business practices. So you have to have honest weights and measures and be honest and trustworthy in your businesses. And we have to have fair labor practices. So it tells you don't leave the wages of your worker overnight. It tells us to care for the disabled. Do not curse the deaf and don't put a stumbling block before the blind, but care for everybody. And it ends with, and it also says that we should treat the stranger in our midst the same as the citizen. And then it ends with, actually the middle part of it, which, as we've said, is the climax, the culmination, is love your neighbor as yourself, what sometimes we call the golden rule. And lots of people like to focus on that. That's like the culminating piece, love your neighbor as yourself. But I want us to pay attention tonight to a couple of verses before love your neighbor as yourself. I want to call our attention to the verse that says, do not stand idly by while your neighbor bleeds, and reprove your neighbor if you see him doing wrong, so that you don't incur sin on his behalf. And so what does this mean to us today? It means that when we see suffering in the world, when we see injustice, when we see need, we are commanded, we are mandated to take action. We are forbidden to stand idly by. We are forbidden to be passive bystanders, but we must speak out, stand up, take a stand, take action. And so that's our charge for tonight. When we see injustice, do not be silent, do not stand silently by, but be holy. You guys ready for the Aliyah? It is, I just looked.
Again, for those following along, if you're following along in the Plout commentary, it's page 894, and I'll call our 8th grade students. Ekra la'amod studentim me shana shmona bebeit sefer shelanu la'aliyah l'torah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael, va'amarta aleihem, kadoshim tiyu, ki kadosh ani, Adonai Elohechem. Ish imo va'aviv tira'u, ve'et shabbatotai tishmeru, ani Adonai Elohechem. Uvkutzrechem et ketzir artzachem, lo tichale pat sadcha liktzor, V'leket k'tircha lo tilaket, u'charmcha lo te'olel, u'frat karmcha lo tilaket, la'oni v'lager ta'azov otam, ani Adonai Elohechem. Lo tignovu v'lo tichachashu, v'lo tishakru ish ba'amito, v'lo tishba'u b'shmi l'shaker. Where do you? Oh, I know where you start. V'chalata et shem Elohecha, ani Adonai. You okay? Want to do it?
Yeah.
You're right here.
Yeah.
You take the odd?
Lo ta'ashok et re'aha v'lo tigzol. Lo talin pe'ulat sachir itecha ad boker. Lo tikalel cheresh lifnei aver. Iver. Lo titen me'elo michshol ve'yareta me'elohecha ani Adonai. Lo ta'asu avel b'mishpat lo tisa fenei dal v'lo tedar penei gadol betzedek tishpot amiteha.
Good. Is that perfect? Lo telech rachil ba'amecha, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, ani Adonai. Lo tisaneh et achicha b'lavavcha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, v'lo tisa alav chet. Lo tikom v'lo titor et b'nei amecha, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ani Adonai. Other side.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Thanks, guys. Good job. Nicely done. That was perfect. Great.
We turn now in our service to thinking about those in our families, among our friends, in our community, in our world, who are suffering, whether suffering physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, and we send them prayers and thoughts for strength, for comfort, for healing whenever possible, and for an easy time. We think of those in our hearts and those in our community. We have about 85 people on our Misha Berach list, so we don't name them all, but we keep them in our hearts. And we also remember those victims, particularly the most recent bombings in the Ukraine and other victims of violence and terror around the world. And if there are people in your family, in your community, among your friends and loved ones whom you're thinking of tonight, for whom you want to send thoughts of healing and comfort and strength, I invite you now to say their names out loud or in your hearts.
Our wounded warriors. Andrea Steinberger. Those who suffer from mental illness. Peter Gunther and Stan Thompson.
Other names? We turn to page 371, Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. I'd like to direct everybody's attention to page 570 in the prayer book. We are in this period of time in the calendar between Pesach and Shavuot. And we have a ritual way where we can be marking time during this season. The rabbis suggest again that this period of 49 days of 7 weeks matches on to the time from when the Israelites were redeemed from slavery in Egypt to when they received the Torah at Mount Sinai. And that this process of shedding off the layers of the narrow ways of thinking and mentalities that they still held on to from having been slaves in Egypt, so that they could be open enough to receive God's wisdom and receive Torah, is a lesson for us that sometimes we need to give ourselves those same kinds of periods of time to open ourselves up to that which we can be learning and receiving. So it also shows us that we can mark time between the holidays. The holidays themselves are significant, but also the time periods between can be full of meaning. So on page 570, we'll offer the intention here to recite the blessing, to count the Omer, and then I'll announce where we are currently in the cycle, and we'll move our way through this time between these festivals. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. תעשה. הנני מוכן ומזומן לקיים מצוות תעשה של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר, על ספירת העומר, על ספירת העומר, על ספירת העומר. היום 23 יום, שהם 3 שבועות ו2 ימים לעומר. Today is 23 days, which is 3 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la.
I'd like to ask Gabe and Isaac to return to the bima to help to dress the scroll. We will return the Torah to the ark, and we will be on page 374, and then we will remain standing and turn to page 586 for Aleinu. Please rise.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. יאי לי 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 יאי לי 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 ya la la lai la lai ya la la lai la lai ya la lai 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 ya la lai la lai ya la la lai la lai ya la la lai la lai ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 ya la lai 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 lai. כי לכך טוב נתתי להם תורתי אל תעזובו. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר. דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה. חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם.
The top of page 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Let's read together at the top of page 591. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Our hearts turn at this time to those loved ones of our community who have passed in recent days or whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of whose death we are honoring tonight. Some recent deaths in our community that we are marking, and we mourn with their families and send them prayers for comfort. Sari Lynn Smith, cousin of Eliza Hoffert and Corey Hoffert. Steve Kaufman, brother of Jean Kaufman Waldman, uncle of Kim and great-uncle of Leora Lewandowski. Rudy Saperstein, grandfather of Stephanie Blumenthal. Judy Connie, wife of Rick Connie, mother of Brian, David, and Sherry, grandmother of Aiden, Allie, and Sophia, Megan, and Jackson. And the yahrzeits that we are observing tonight: Maria Julia Aviles, Martin Bernstein, Donald Borski, Ruth B. Cohen, Sylvia Cole, Sarah A. Glassner, Al Golden, Steve Gerstel, Alan Hyman, Bob Klaskin, Fred Lowe, Lael Lubing, Mo Lusan, Harvey Malofsky, Cecile Orenberg, Robert Schwartz, Lily Sorkin, Sam Stein, Marilyn Stone, Sylvan Sweet, Zachary Tabak, Herman L. Wagner, Peter Wallach, Joseph Ward, Julius Weiss, Edward Ziemke. We also remember those who have died and were victims of bombings and of the war in Ukraine. And remember those innocent Israelis and Palestinians who have died in recent acts of terror. If there are names of loved ones who you are particularly remembering tonight and you would like to say their names in your hearts or out loud, I invite you to do so now. Other names? And I invite you, please, to turn to page 598 and rise for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mivarach le'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitha'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dugudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. We have a number of announcements, and then we're going to have a closing song. And stay here after our closing song because the Berger family is going to come back up and lead us in the Kiddush before we go for our Oneg Shabbat, our celebration of Shabbat. So first, want to thank Mona and Steve for all their help tonight, and to Melissa and Lonnie Berger for sponsoring the Oneg in honor of Kaz's upcoming bar mitzvah. And I want to welcome my friends, Pastor Chris Gorton and Rebecca Malky, who have brought some of their congregants from Memorial United Church of Christ in Fitchburg. You may not know this, but Chris was an intern of mine and put together our Facebook page and our newsletter and all kinds of amazing things that we're still using today. So it's wonderful to welcome you here. Tomorrow, Rain and Falk will celebrate becoming Bat Mitzvah at our Shabbat morning service, and please be here at 10:30 a.m. to celebrate with Rainin and her family. Also, tomorrow at 9 a.m., Torah study will study Beyond the Five Books, the study of the Tanakh. And at 1:30, Sisterhood is having a Kala, the Spices of Havdalah. Next week, Friday night, May 5th at 5:30, we're having early service. So at 5:30, there is a pre-Shabbat Nash. And at 6 o'clock, there is Shabbalala. Did I say that right?
Shabbalala.
See, I told you I was going to mess it up. And that Saturday, May 6th at 9 a.m. is Torah study. And at 10:30 is Kaz Berger's bar mitzvah. And he's very excited. Also upcoming June 4th, Volunteer Appreciation and our annual meeting. And Saturday, June 10th, Friends and Family Face-Off, which Cantor Nami assures me is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be essentially our spring fundraiser, and it's going to be a very Family Feud style game night. It should be a lot of fun. And the only thing I would just mention too regarding the Sisterhood Kala, that's off-site. So if you need any information about that or any other of the events in our announcements that you can find in the Shabbat program, all of that can be also found on our website.
Great. And we will conclude before Kiddush with Od Yavo Shalom on page 657.
Indeed, especially given that we recently celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, Israeli Independence Day, and the teaching from our sages that peace is so great that all prayer can be sealed with peace. What a great thing to end with a song for peace and wholeness, and hope that that carries us into our Shabbat and beyond. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salem, salem, salem aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. We invite the Berger family to come on up, and everyone else can turn to page 123 for Kiddush. After which we will all be invited to join one another for Oneg out in the Weinstein Community Court. All right, so we have a prayer book there if you want. And Cassie, it's the words are on page 123 in the prayer book there. For us. Got it. 123. You got it. All right. Hold this one. I'll take the other one. Well, we have one. Yeah, Dad, hold the book. Start us off with Baruch, and I'll join you. Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashavat lechaim. Anybody who wants can take a sip. Up to you all.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll join one another out in the community court for Oneg.